How's it going, everyone? So, Baz Lifts yesterday put out a great video, and there was a topic that came up in that video, and also in a discussion I had with some people I know regarding the natural limit or genetic potential, things of that nature. And for the most part, I try to be pretty tongue-in-cheek with some of the ideas that I present because I want to be fair in my assessment of them. I want to be coherent in my presentation of them, and I want to be, useful in how I make certain discussions and certain talks. However, that doesn't really always vibe well with what I actually believe. So, something I want to get across to you right now is that if you believe in genetic potential or natural limits, for the most part, and by this I mean 99%, like 99.999%, I think you're just bullshitting yourself. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't apply to everyone who has ever talked about the natural limit. This does not apply to everyone who has ever discussed it on their channel. There are definitely things that that exist out there and point in the direction of some type of limitation. However, almost none of those things have been applied to most of us. And the reason why I say this, and when I say us, I mean like you, me, the person, like you watching this right now. More than likely, there are things in our life that we are in full control over that we are not giving the attention it deserves. So we have not refined the processes around it. We have not refined the systems around it. We have not modified our own individual perception and identity of these things in such a way that we can realistically say that we have somehow hit some type of limit. Hasn't occurred, not real, didn't happen. Not because a limit doesn't exist, but just because the limit you have in your head, even to the degree of it being actually a real thing, you are so far removed from it that you discussing it is really just, for lack of better words, cope. I know precisely the things that I am not giving the proper attention that are actively limiting my potential. As a result, it is my responsibility to improve upon those things. That applies to almost all of us. None of us are perfect. And that is just the very nature of being human. And that is the number one thing that's always going to be an impediment to our goals. It's the fact that we are not machines. We are humans with a wide variety of different, and we are a wide variety of different limitations, factors, and or not limitations. I shouldn't have used that word, but obstacles that come in the way solely by the essence of our own being. And those things, right, we have to contend with on a regular basis. We have to somehow manage to be hard on ourselves, but also compassionate with ourselves. We somehow have to manage being, having high expectations of ourselves, but at the same time not being too grandiose and too, I guess, unrealistic, for lack of better words. But when it comes to the discussion of natural limits, right? First and foremost, most people discussing it, most people, right? They haven't been training long enough to even throw their hat into the discussion, essentially. And I know that sounds very gatekeepy as far as like, anyone can have thoughts and opinions regarding certain things. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that your thoughts and opinions are equally weighted. At least in this instance, in some cases, everyone is epistemic peers as far as their opinions go. But in some, I don't want to hear a natural limit discussion talked about by someone who is, under 21 years old and under $2. So if you're under 200 pounds, haven't been training for 5+ years, I would heavily diminish what I would take away from your discussion on the natural limit. Quite simply because there are just too many things that you have not done yet for you to kind of assume, well, I've hit my genetic limit. This is as strong as I'm going to get on this certain exercise. This is as big as I'm going to get on this certain lift. No, it's not. Even when it comes to people like myself, people like Bald Omni-Man, Paris Butler, Jeffrey Brady Schofield, Freaky D, every single one of them has spent an exorbitant amount of years developing themselves, perfecting their craft, improving upon themselves. And even after all that time, they can still make marginal improvements, and it might take longer for those improvements to be visible or noticeable by other people or even themselves. However, they have been able to keep going. Once you believe in something like a limit, you have essentially killed your ability to keep going. Limits are, if a limit is something that is like stagnant, right? If it's something that is just set in stone, then you essentially have the wrong image of a limit, in my opinion. The reason why people say breaking their limits or anything of that nature, it's more akin to breaking their personal records or something of that nature. They think of their limits as simply the best that they have achieved thus far, and they have no, I guess, hubris in thinking that that is all that they can do. In my opinion, the belief that that is all you can do, that you know everything you need to know, you're as strong as you can possibly get ever in your life, you're as big as you can possibly get, that to me is the greatest example of just pride. And the negative aspect of pride, the pride that is typically regarded as a sin, the pride that tells you that I know everything and I'm perfect the way I am. And perfect, by perfect I mean that you are in your final state, you are in your final form, that there is no more improvement, that there is no more possibility of getting better. If you truly think that you are there, then you are. Quite simply because you have shut yourself off from the possibility of even getting better, of thinking that it's even possible for you to be even marginally better than you were previously. So people who believe in the natural limit, they do so because they want one, in my opinion. They want a natural limit to be there, so it eliminates the need for them to work hard, to keep trying, and even like more difficult, refining their process outside the gym. As I mentioned earlier, I have no illusions of the things that have limited my progress. As a result, I have to really work on those things. My sleep could be better. My diet could be better. My stress management could be better. And these are all things that I'm actively working on because as of right now, those are the things that limit what I can reasonably hit. And if we only look at the training, if we only look at the results, that is not where our ability to take action actually resides. It's always going to, our ability to take action is never going to be in the goals themselves, but in the ways that we try to live our lives, the way that we try to actually reach these goals. So when it comes to natural limits, when it comes to this idea of genetic potential or things of that nature, I want you to ask yourself a couple different things first. Have I been training for 10 plus years? Have I been training right for 10 plus years? Have I been looking outside of the, let's say, so for us, power builders, power lifters, bodybuilders, what have you, we tend to be focused heavily on, the gym, our training and whatnot. Have we looked at all of the outside the gym factors that we have going on in our lives? My sleep, my recovery, my rest, my stress management, things of that nature. How good am I at managing these things? And here's another thing. This is why I think people who are great become great. When things aren't going well, when things seem to not be progressing anymore, typically the people who are really, really good at continuing to make progress, they will ask themselves a very simple question. Have I tried doing this 1,000 more times? It's very unga bunga. It's very like caveman, apes together strong type mindset. And part of that is because you can't divorce that from the, I guess, passion that we all share. Getting bigger, getting stronger, lifting weights, things of that nature, right? When it comes to a lot of, I guess, black-pilled individuals, they really got inspired by this idea that, what do you call someone who does the same thing and expecting a different result? You call them insane, or that's the definition of insanity or something of that nature. And quite simply, yeah, to be really great in this sport, it's important to be a little bit insane. Why would you put so much effort into small little habits if, a day passes and it doesn't even make that big of a difference? A week passes, it doesn't make that big of a difference. But the thing is, a month passes, a difference has now been made. A year passes, significant differences have now been made. So the amount of work that you have to put in on a daily basis to get results on a yearly time frame, sure, call that insane, but the reason why people are the way that they are, the size that they are, the strength that they have, is because of their willingness to be that little bit insane. And here's another thing in regards to that whole, like, what is the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. None of us are really think of it in that way, quite simply because between each attempt, I'm a little bit smarter and I'm a little bit better. So, oftentimes people think that because they believe in themselves as being this stagnant thing, that they're not improving, and as a result, they're not. And so for people like myself, people like, the people that I look up to, and the other people in the underground YouTube fitness, like, community and space, and many other lifters who are watching and, don't really post because that's not their job or what interests them. Each of them understand that every time they do a thing, they are slightly better for it and slightly different than they were before that attempt. So doing something 1,000 times really does make a difference. Not to get too gushy over Bruce Lee, but there's a reason why, for some reason, every time someone tells you to get better at a certain thing, they always say, I don't fear the man who practiced 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. Are you practicing what your goal requires of you? Because your goal usually requires more of you than you think. It's not just your training split. It's not just your training program. It's not just your diet. There are more things that go into it. And here's the thing. The hardest part about getting better at those things is just being willing to let go of other things. Being really big, being really strong. Overall, it is a very simple goal. Now, don't get me wrong, there are definitely things that can make it difficult. That's why coaches exist. That's why this whole content creation sphere exists. It's because people run into these issues. However, usually if we really want to improve on these things, it usually comes at the cost of letting certain things go so that we can focus more on things that actually matter to us. And when it comes to the genetic limit believers and people like that, they are unwilling to do that. They are unwilling to let go of the idea that they know everything. They're unwilling to let go of the idea that they're somehow enlightened by knowing that a limit does exist in some capacity, if it does at all. And as a result, because of their pride, because of their hubris, they stay the same. The people who keep growing are the people who continually empty their cup. The people who continually believe themselves to be a learner, a experimenter. The value of a cup is because the cup is empty. If you keep it full, you can't really, you're always going to be overflowing with things and you're never going to be able to retain anything. And as a result, you're never going to be able to get better. You're never going to be able to understand and take into you what actually is going to be beneficial to you, what is actually going to be useful to you. You're never going to be able to understand what makes other people great because you are so caught up in keeping inside yourself what you think makes you great. And as a result, you have lost your value as a cup. That's a bit more esoteric than I would like to take it, but that's just where the mind went. So hope you found this useful. Hope you found this talk useful. If you took away anything from my ramblings, stop believing in a natural limit. You have not taken yourself to your own limits to even discuss it. You have too many things that you could be doing to improve upon yourself to be thinking about a natural limit. And by the time you have put in all the work that is required of you for your goals, you will start to see that the idea of a limit is much less relevant to you. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember to do your best, or at least what you can. Keep trying hard, people, and stop where you stand.